Welcome, everyone, to this week's Infinite Wisdom interview series. And we're on Livestream. And we have an in-depth discussion with author and speaker, Kathy McDaniels, where she shares about how her experience shifted her life's path to a joy-filled, purpose-driven destiny. So her book, Misfit in Hell to Heaven Expat, details her experiences. And Kathy has also been featured on a documentary called Consciousness Continues, where she says, I didn't have a feeling of leaving my body. I didn't know I was dead. I really didn't for a long, long time. I just knew all of a sudden I was dropped into this very strange situation and had to take off running from there. I really didn't have time to think about it. So here's her story. She was hospitalized for ARDS, a type of lung failure, in 1999 and placed on a ventilator and put into a drug-induced coma, experiencing a disturbing near-death experience. And although incredibly traumatic, the indescribable bliss of heaven shifted her religious beliefs to a deep form of spirituality. Her gentle message of love and kindness in our daily lives includes listening to strangers on airplanes and looking deeply into the eyes of suffering souls. Kathy, this is an absolutely fascinating story. And as I said prior to going live, in researching this topic for today's show, I was a bit taken back by how huge this is and how big it is. There are conferences and meetings and all kinds of things. And how do near-death experiences actually happen?
In a variety of ways. When they say near death, some people think you have to be flatlined or dead, but no, it can be any traumatic up to death sort of situation, and your soul gets a little loosey-goosey and it can travel. And for me, that's what it is. It's a medical term.
Loosey-goosey right now.
It was here for a minute ago. Yeah. I was in a drug-induced coma, and they told me, last thing I heard just before they pumped me full of God knows what, was, we're going to give you white amnesia and you will remember nothing. Your brain will just check out and you will remember nothing of what happens here. So goodbye and good luck. And so I gave a thumbs up and I was gone. But somewhere in there, I became conscious. And in so doing, it was pitch black. I could hear no sounds. I thought someone had put me in a closet for a joke. And I thought, well, I don't know if I'm standing or sitting or what. I'll just kind of hang out, which I did for quite some time, until there was a reddish glow that started happening. And I thought, okay, good. The sun's coming up. I can see what's going on. But as the glow got brighter, it turned into kind of a swirling fog, and that didn't seem right. And then it got warm, uncomfortably warm, and I smelled something really bad. And then I started hearing these shrieks and moaning sounds. Well, I said, this cannot be good. And I still couldn't move. So I waited. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, boom, this horrible voice. Do you know where you are? I was taken aback and I scrambled for an answer, but all I could come up with was hell. And then this voice boomed back with this maniacal laugh straight out of a 60s horror film. Boo-ah-ah-ah-ah. So I freaked out, and I just, again, it's pitch dark, and I just scrambled to the left and took off.
So you took off. I mean, you felt like you were physically running?
As your introduction said, I never felt dead. I was still me. And I was just I wasn't in Kansas anymore. I just took off. And what happened is I had a series of experiences that were like segments out of a movie set. I've heard since then, and only recently, that most or a lot of distressing NDE people experience hell in segments. And it's taken me 23 years to kind of wrap my mind around all this that's happened. But ultimately, I believe that I manifested this because I know now that God doesn't send anybody to hell. If you want to go, you have to write your own ticket. So I manifested this from the hellish experiences that I had in my lifetime. And so the first one was the lights came up, and here was this completely bombed out city. It looked like New York, big, tall buildings, but the windows were blown out. There was fires everywhere. Concrete had fallen over, rebar sticking up. It was a mess. And again, the moaning and the shrieking, and I had no idea where I was. And here I was standing in the middle of all this stuff. So I, being a good Girl Scout, I tucked in behind some concrete, and I thought, well, I better wait this out. Maybe there's people out there, maybe not. Wow. And I did manage to through the smoke see somebody that was hunkered down like I was, I don't know, probably 40 feet away. And I thought, well, I'm taking a chance here. This could be the enemy. This could be somebody that could harm me, but I've got to take a chance. So I just yelled out, hey, hello, I'm over here. Maybe we could get together. I'll find sticks. You start a fire. Wow. And I waited for an answer. And all that came back was this mournful voice. We are all alone here. That's pretty odd and not very neighborly, but okay, I guess I'll have to do this on my own. Well, a couple things happened. I heard this scratching, skittering sound like metal on rocks. And I tucked back in because I thought, what the heck's that? And a shadow went by, this great big shadow, huge. And I could see the metallic feet go by. I thought, son of a gun, it's aliens. That's what happened. They blew up New York, and I've seen way too many sci-fi movies. And it looked like this giant spider thing. Okay, my greatest terror in this life is spiders. So a great big metal one that's within 10 feet of me was heart pounding. And again, I didn't know I was dead, so I was terrified. So I thought, well, this thing took off, and I thought, I've got to just get out of here. I've got to go find a better place to hide. Maybe I can get in an old apartment building, find some food. I don't know. I just took off and I ran. And there's other things that happen in the book. I'm very detailed because I haven't forgotten a thing. But I eventually tried to get over this wall, and I fell, landed on my back. And I thought, I'm toast because I made a lot of noise. They're going to find me. But boom, it went dark, and then the lights came up again, and there was another scene. And this just went on. And the first chance I had to meet an inhabitant was when a scene came up, and there was this great big demon is the only word I could come up with. I mean, if you had this mental picture of a demon, that's what it would be. Big guy, like a really ugly Bigfoot, kind of hairy, tattered clothes with a big club. And I look up and I think, now what? And he says, you got a job. Job. He said, well, do you want to get out of here? And I said, well, yeah. And he says, you do this one thing for me. Do this job, and I'll see that you get out. Deal? And I thought, I got nothing to lose. I said, sure, what is it? And then the lights came up, and as far as you could see, there's all these blackberry vines, big ones, all entangled as far as you could see, big, 6 feet tall. Now, if you live in Washington, you've seen blackberry vines, and you know how hard they are to get rid of. Well, many times when I've moved into a house, I've had them in the backyard or along the fence. And so I know you have to go out and how you have to cut them. Okay. So he hands me these little kindergarten scissors that kids use to cut paper. and says, just cut them all down and I'll see that you get out of it. I'll wait. And I thought, this guy's playing with me. That's ridiculous. And he just crossed his arms and he's got a smug look on his face. I thought, well, okay, pal. So I got down into the vines and I'm getting all scratched up and that hurts. And, I got stickers on me. And so I start gnawing on this one vine and gnawing and gnawing and gnawing. And finally got through. So I picked it up and I turned to kind of put it behind me. And when I turned back around, it grew back. And I thought, well, this isn't good either. So I looked up at this demon and he's just laughing. He thinks that's just hysterical. And I thought, I'm a survivor and I don't like to be told what to do. And I was mad at this guy. So I just kept going. But then, boom, here came another scene. They got worse. I ended up in a clinic of some sort where they were doing abortions on ladies. And my job was to take product of this abortion over to this huge room, looked like Costco warehouse, and put the baby down in there. I did that once with this other big, huge demon that had come at me and told me this was my new job. And then I said, no, I'm not doing that. That's disgusting. It's wrong. And I'm not going to do it. And so he raised his club and says, you have no idea what you're bringing on yourself this time. And I just thought, if I keep playing their game, maybe I'll find a door or somebody to help me. So, and again, I didn't know I was dead. In the meantime, there was like these breaks where I would find myself on this road in the middle of nowhere, literally. It was dark. It was just that reddish glow in the background, no stars, no moon, no nothing, just this dirt road with kind of rocks on it. And it went one way and then it went another way. There was no signs or anything. I didn't bring a compass. So I thought, well, I'll just go to the right and start walking and walking and walking. And half the time I was in hell, I was walking on that blasted road. The main thing they told me is, just give up, just despair. That's all you got to do. You're not going to get out of here. So just go with a program. And I said, no, I'm not going to do that. Somewhere in my mind, I had remembered despair as like the thing you do not do. Couldn't figure out why or when I heard that, but I knew that was just not the answer. So I thought, no, as long as I can, I'll keep fighting this. So I had a couple of experiences on the road, and then I'd find myself in another scene, and it just went on and on. When I got back and I had a chance to lay in the hospital and this thing kept going through my mind over and over and over, I figured it felt like about 2 years that I was there. Of course, I was in this coma for only less than 3 weeks, but there's no time on the other side. So if you get over there, even for a second of Earth time, it's a long time.
Right. So prior to all this happening, were you or are you a religious person at the time?
I was a cradle Catholic. My dad was an atheist in World War II until his plane got shot down on the Philippines and crashed and caught fire upside down on the beach in the middle of the war. Wow. And then he said, God, if you're out there, save me. And me and my family will become Catholics. He'd been taught by the Jesuits. Used to argue with him all the time about being no God. So within seconds, some Marines came out of the jungle, cut him out of the plane and took him into the jungle. A medic kind of patched him up and somehow he got back to Honolulu, but the family became Catholics. And so we went to Catholic school. We went to church on Sunday. My dad was a lector. My mom was served communion. Total Catholic. Did this experience increase your belief in your religion? Do you feel like, I was at a 5 prior to this, but now I'm at a 10, or did it go backwards or reverse or less, more? This sort of experience just kind of changes everything. Yeah. I mean, you're never the same. once you know, I was thinking about, somebody asked me, do you still have faith, Kathy? I said, no, I don't. I know. I don't have to have faith. I know. So consequently, my family's all still Catholic. I live up in Washington. They live in California. I go see them, well, around the COVID mess, about once a month, hang out, go to church. But over the years, it got harder and harder. I just saying the prayers, things didn't make sense anymore. Jesus sits at the right hand of the Father on the throne. I thought, there's no thrones up there. We're going to all hang out and just be thrilled for the last day of judgment and raising our bodies from the dead. We'll get our bodies back. And I thought, nobody in their right mind wants their body back. I mean, if you've ever been outside of it, that's the last thing you want to do. Okay, we got to throw that out now, and that judgment thing. I thought, no, God is all love and all forgiving, and there's no one to judge. I mean, look at the prodigal son. That's just about the only thing in the Bible I still believe is too short, but understand and endorse. God is all loving, no matter what happens. Everybody goes to heaven. That's just the way it is. So that threw out the whole thing on sin and going to confession, and it just dissolved. My religion dissolved. It just kind of was like an ice cube that melted and it just went away. And I was left with this knowing.
Your first experience was in hell.
Yeah.
And so, but you say that everyone goes to heaven. So is this a prove it type of a part of the process? How badly do you want to be in heaven, or what do you feel is the reason that things transpired in the order that they did?
Yeah, because it almost sounded like you were like in this almost like it's waiting room area, first of all, right? To kind of, sort out which direction you were going to go and what was going to happen with your consciousness.
Well, when I got to the end of my trip, when I finally got out of there, it was by, synchronicity. There are no accidents. They told me it was the worst day in hell because it was Christmas. And that because I asked, I says, I've been here a long time and it's a particularly nasty kind of heavy feeling today. And the demon says, it's Christmas on earth, worst day in hell. And I thought, well, I was still being a brat. So I started singing a Christmas carol, and it was away in the manger, no crib for his bed, the little Lord. And as I started to say the next word, the demon came at me shrieking, no, and I woke up somewhere else. I was in this bliss of heaven. I didn't know. I mean, you just, all of a sudden, it's like going to a surprise party. You open the door and everybody yells surprise. Well, let me tell you, that was a big one. Just this infusion of bliss and joy and all this other stuff. And you can't describe it. You just got to be there. But yeah, that's how I got into heaven. And then I saw my friend who had died the month before. I'd been caregiving for him, and that's why I'd gotten so run down and sick. And he looked so good. I mean, he'd had leukemia, and now he looked great, and he was younger looking and healthy and smiling. And he was looking at me like, I know something you don't know. We had been engaged for 7 years. We were best friends. And I thought, what's going on? He had that Irish glint in his eye. And he had shown me something in this big book. I think my life is what I think was in there. And he showed me why I had to go back, but I couldn't remember when I got on the other side. And that always makes you mad when you can't remember. But he said, no, you've got too much left to do. And I thought, Flash, you mean they're throwing me out? And I just said, no, no. And he just laughed. And that's when I woke up in the hospital. Yeah. Wow.
So a lot of other people have, in the research that I was doing, have talked about having increased abilities or perceptions and intuitiveness. Have you noticed anything in yourself as far as your perception of the world or your perception of people? I know a lot of people have become mediums, etc. How about yourself?
Yeah, you can't help but be kind of extra sensitive, I guess, about people. You see their souls more,
Okay,
you know,
interesting. Can you
you realize, I
describe
mean,
that?
pardon?
Can you describe that when you say you see
Well,
someone's
it's
soul
like
better?
sometimes I was walking down Seattle by the waterfront with some friends, and there was a couple of homeless guys sitting there, right? And generally, I think we kind of condition ourselves to avert our eyes or say, "Oh, poor thing," or maybe, you know. And this one particular man was sitting there, and typically dirty and smelly and a little scary. And I thought, you know what? He's got a soul in there. So I kind of stopped and I just looked at him. And he looked at me and I said, "God bless you." And he said, "You too." And I walked on and I thought, Jesus was in there. I've done that a couple of times just to give myself well, just a check, just to remember we're all the same inside. We've just taken on these bodies and these personas for the reason to come down and learn lessons. And it's really important to remember that we're all the same.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so that's been different.
Yeah.
If people ask for help, I'm a lot more available. We were just in Europe for a while, and there was a little lady sitting there. There's very few homeless in Europe. I was amazed, and very few people begging on the streets. But there was one lady, and the look in her eyes was something there, you know. So I stopped, and I gave her money, and I said, you know, "God bless you." And for me, when I do that, if they say "God bless you" back, it's like that little soul touch where, you know, we decided that a long time ago.
Yeah.
That we would touch base. Yeah. So I'm more attuned to that. Even if I'm talking to a person and, you know, "How you doing?" "Fine." And I think I just understand, no, you're not fine. You know, something's wrong with your husband, but I don't call people on it. I'll just kind of say, "Are you sure? You look a little worried." "Well, my husband's such and such." And that's where that airplane thing came in. For the longest time before COVID, I was flying once a month to see my mom and dad. Dad died of COVID a year and a half ago, but mom's still around at age 95. But I would say more than 50% of the time on an airplane, I would just get in, I read my Kindle. But if somebody next to me starts talking to me, I learned that was a signal. And so I put the Kindle down and I just talk back, and it's a 2-hour ride. And each time that happened, that person says, you know, "I just came in from burying my mother," or my sister is really ill. I'm so afraid of what's going to happen to her." They're crying, they're talking. These are men and women. And I listen, and I say, "Well, I've been there. And, you know, this is my experience." And, they again, another key is they say, "I don't know what I would have done if I had run into you." I had two separate ladies take me down to the baggage place to pick up their baggage so they could introduce me to their husband and say, "This wonderful woman, blah, blah, blah." So that's a perk, you know, of getting back.
Sounds like you tune into what we call sync portals, where you're starting to notice all the different types of synchronicities that are occurring, because we call sync portals gateways to alternate realities. And so when it seems something has allowed you to tap into that, what we call code in the reality, where the synchronicities become more in your awareness, and you can respond to them appropriately, right? Whereas most people just it just goes right by them, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right. That's how I got involved with ions. The other thing that happens is, we all have this voice we hear now and then. It's our higher self or a conscience or a guardian
Yeah.
angel. When you get back, that thing is loud. I mean, it's not a whisper anymore. It's very insistent, and it's got a good sense of humor. Mine does anyway. And through a series of really complicated synchronicities, I found myself in an ions meeting in Seattle, and I thought, holy cow, there was a room full of these people. There was like 50 people in there. And here I thought I was one of very few, in the universe.
Yeah.
And it was great, except they all had the stories of flowers and angels and parks and bunnies and stuff. And I thought, that wasn't really my experience. I don't think I belong here. So I didn't come again. But the voice, I mean, is so. You're going to a meeting today. No, I'm not. Get in the car. I'm not going. Find your keys. I find myself driving to Seattle. I hate driving to Seattle. It's so much traffic. I get in the darn meeting. And finally somebody said, who are you? And what, I said, well, I had kind of a different experience. Oh, great. We never get to hear those. Those are, like 12 to 20% of the people have distressing ones. And oh boy, look, you guys. And it was like, wait a minute, this is not, entertainment for everybody. This was dramatic, folks. And it's, we got to hear it. So I eventually was forced up onto the stage with Kimberly Clark Sharp, who was one of the founders in Seattle there, and told my story. And I've always been a writer. I've always been a storyteller. So I thought, okay, these clowns want to hear the story. They're going to hear the story. I pulled no punches. I told everything is horrible and is disgusting as it all was. And I'm telling you, you got 50 people out there in chairs, and you could have heard a pin drop in that room. I mean, everybody was with me on the journey, man. And when we got to the end and I finally got out, I mean, everybody just roared and clapped, and oh boy, they were exhausted. They were so happy because I gave them the key at the end, right? How to get out if you find yourself in hell. So that was the first positive thing I'd ever heard, because of course my family didn't want to hear about it. Holy cats, Kathy, what did you do to go to hell? I'm a good Catholic girl. Oh my. Friends didn't want to talk about it. So this is 10 years after this experience, I finally had somebody that would listen to me, and it was uplifting. And then came this whole thing about, oh, you got to write a book. You got to write a book. And I thought, no. I had spent a lot of time writing this experience after I got back because I couldn't get the darn thing out of my head. And I thought if I could just write it, stick it in the drawer, it'd go away, fade like a dream, fade like a hallucination from drugs. It wasn't. It happens in your soul, not in your brain.
Yeah.
So finally, at one of the conferences a couple of years ago, I love them. They're so full of energy. One of these ladies had a booth, and it says, do you need to write a book on here? So I'd walk by to try not to catch her eye or something. Last day of the conference, she's folding up stuff and putting it in boxes, and we're leaving. And I thought, oh God, there she is. And she looked, and she jumped out in front of me and says, you need to write a book. And I says, oh yeah, they say you need to write a book. Turns out she's a medium. And somebody, I didn't know that. And he told her I had to write a book. So she corralled me, and it took months to get me to actually say I would do it. And then it took a long time to write it. And then she published it, and there you are.
Wow.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, and we put the link for the book in the comments. So Hemi has a question. It says, how if he didn't have a body did you recognize him? Apparently when you saw your friend or recognized your friend in heaven. How does that work? Are you recognizing energy? Are you literally physically seeing form of the
you
body?
go back to where you don't feel dead, because you're still your soul, everything is still you. And I guess there's a manifestation that goes up there. You can't have billions and billions of little light bulbs floating around. I mean, you're still an individual of sorts. I mean, I'm not a physicist. I don't understand all that stuff, but all I know is most people say when they see somebody that's deceased, they look like they're about in their 30s. They picture of health, prime of their life. And I guess you choose, you get to choose what you look like. He was wearing a sweater I gave him for Christmas, so I mean, it was wild. It was so, well, it is real.
But I mean,
I thought you didn't like that sweater. But yeah, it was just him.
Well, that's really so. To have a near-death experience, does a person have to be clinically dead? How does this work medically?
No, that's why they call it near death. If it was a death experience, you wouldn't come back. So traditionally, people think, okay, you got to have the flat line, you got to have the paramedic there. But there are people that die in their sleep and go. Nobody knows they're dead and they come back. People in comas, it's been, I won't say proven, but it's been accepted by IONS that when you're in a coma, your body's there, but your consciousness, I don't know if it gets bored or what, but it can travel, it can leave. And that's what happened to me.
Did you have that experience of seeing your body?
No, I just woke up in the dark. Yeah, well, that's why I didn't know I was dead. And people say, well, didn't you look down at your feet? How often a day do you look down at your feet? I mean, there's no mirrors in hell. I mean, for some people that would be hell to look in a mirror, but no, I just, it never occurred to me. Because I don't know why. Everybody has a different experience. And it can't be cookie cutter.
That is just fascinating. It really is.
Well, we fast forward to why. Why was I there?
Sure.
And we kind of all agree, I think, in this panel that we start off in heaven. We choose our lives. I've been told there's a committee that puts a stamp on it. You pick your soulmates. You'll be my dad this time. You were my dad last time, and I'll be your mother-in-law. I'll be your next door neighbor. Everybody, it's a play. We all are acting in the play. We go down. We follow the play, and then we go home. And
I like to tell people this is just a temporary gig. You got to remember
it's
a temporary gig.
Yeah, don't get attached to it. It's not going to run forever.
Yeah,
They're going to close it down. But that, that's what it is. And so when you get back, I'm told I wasn't there long enough because they kicked me out too soon, but you get a life review. I'm told that there's no judgment ever. You just get the opportunity to see how you did with your lessons. You get to see every moment from, the day, probably before you were born, all the way through. And then you get to flip that over and get to experience how it felt to interact with you. And you can say, you got some guides and you got some angels and people saying, you knocked it out of the park there. It could have gone a little better over here, but there's no judgment. So again, when I came back, it's like, well, if there is no judgment, that opens a whole can of worms when you're a Christian, and Jesus died for your sins and all that.
Because unconditional means unconditional, right?
Exactly. Things start falling apart. So there's a big movement out there about deconstructing religions and beliefs. And I'm a card carrying member.
Got it. That's great.
Okay. So because of your upbringing, you have these preconceived ideas of what heaven is, what hell is, how this whole process works. Have you taken all of those and just kind of chucked them out the window?
No.
Where do you draw that line?
I don't know that it's a line. It's an understanding that I planned all of that. My biggest question was why? Why in the heck, Kathy, would you plan something like that? Well, Nancy Evans Bush is one of the people that had a negative or distressing near-death experience. And she's a very intelligent lady. She's been around a long time. She's written 3 books. Her take on that was that we all do choose our lives. The really brave souls pick something epic something where they can come down and go through the fires of hell and bring back some treasure for humanity to share that most people wouldn't sign up for.
Yeah.
So I'd much rather be a brave soul than a damned one. And so I have taken that flag and flown it. And so I believe that I volunteered for some reason to go down and not go down, but to have that experience. So I could come back, get on lovely podcasts like yours and tell people you don't need to go to hell. Nobody goes to hell unless they choose to. And being the cradle Catholic that I was from the time I was a little kid, I was told there was heaven, purgatory, and hell. Purgatory is for everybody but Mother Teresa and maybe St. Anthony if you're Italian. But everybody else has to go to purgatory, which is like hell now, Kathy, except you get out. That's the difference. And get your sins burned off so you will be pure before God. Well, I believe that. I lived my life that way. I did the whole indulgence thing. You say a rosary, you get 300 days off purgatory. It's in black and white. They write that out. And then if, you knock your sister down the stairs, it's 500 days in purgatory. Now you got to do another mass. I did that whole math thing my whole life. I was really good at math, but I screwed up somehow. It got out of kilter somewhere, but that's wrong. It doesn't work that way. So I am here to tell people God is all loving, all forgiving. There is no judgment. There is no hell. Skip the trip, basically.
So when
somebody has to tell you.
When you say that God is loving and forgiving and such like that, was there a moment when you actually met God or were face to face and that's what was said to you or transmitted to you? How did that work?
We humans love to make God in our image. We see him as a him and as a human. God is just pure love and energy. Mm-hmm. God is everywhere. I love that. When we first went to kindergarten, who is God? God is love. Where is God? God is everywhere. That's the first two things I learned. And they're the things that are true. So yeah, God is everywhere. And that bliss, that not feeling, that experience of total love negates anything negative. It's a double negative. But you just know God is so loving and he's not a he and he's not a man.
So what can you tell people about then your concept, your idea of karma? Because karma comes implied with judgment of doing good, doing bad, reward, punishment. What's your take on that?
Well, yeah, if you have to take out those words bad and whatever, I think then you're left with experience. So again, if we're souls that want to, everything's great in heaven. Everybody's got a kind of I think communal mind, everything. So maybe it looks like a vacation to go down to earth and have your own thoughts, your own house, your own, all these choices. It looks kind of good from heaven because, there's no time up there. You get down here and you think 100 years is a long time, but I'm strayed from the subject matter. Karma. I think we misunderstand karma just like we misunderstand religion. That is just maybe we didn't quite learn that lesson well enough. And we get back and we say, I really didn't learn that non-judgmental thing like I hoped I would. It's our own realization. And it's not bad. It's just something we wanted to do. It was a ride in Disneyland we wanted to take and we didn't get to take it.
Wonderful. So are you of the mind that when we repeat our next life, that we are taking the experiences and the knowledge from the first 100 of them, and we're constantly building on top of the other?
Yeah, I didn't get that. Yeah, go ahead.
Does the linear part of it dissolve for you?
I'm not a physicist. I don't know those answers. All I know is I watch shows like yours and all these other podcasts and all these other people that have the other pieces. It's like we all get a piece. And if we all sit down at the table, it's like a jigsaw puzzle. And I'll put my piece down and you put your piece down.
Yeah.
And then as a collective, we can understand. So I'm learning just like you are. And I believe what these people are telling me because they resonate. They make sense to me. And yeah, that karma thing and the past life thing. I heard something this morning. I don't know if it was your show or Vicky's, but when you have that deja vu moment, and you say, I've been here before, or I've known you from somewhere. Yeah, it's a past life, it's a future life, it's in heaven, it's whatever. Our little tiny human brains just can't, put it all into focus here.
Somehow, yeah.
Once we get on the other side and there's not this impediment of being human, it's going to be, oh, shoot, that was easy. I should have figured that out. But now it's kind of part of the fun. I try and look at everything as not a joke, but it's lighter. I love not feeling like a victim anymore. I used to, I had a 2-day-old baby die, my first baby. I was so angry with God. Why would you do this to me? How could you kill a little child? I had a hell of a time with God for a while. I was so angry. And then, God isn't Santa Claus. We don't just, I had a real conversation one time, it's in the book, and somebody reminded me of it the other day. One time I sat down, I says, okay, God, I'm praying like hell here and you've gone deaf. What's up? I want this, I want that. And you just don't pay attention. And God just says, well, now, Kathy, he's very patient with me. You chose your life and all these things you wanted to experience. Now you're praying that I take them away. Now, I gave you free will and I'm going to honor that. And I'm not going to change that for you because that's not what you want. You just don't know it. So, okay. So it's like, okay, what good is prayer? You just, everything starts to be questioned after you get back. But, like I say, keep a sense of humor. It's all going to be good. We signed up.
Things like that, like prayer and such, and your rosary and your the other thing you're saying, I don't know what you said exactly was. Where do you think they came from? Why are they there?
Because we're people and we like to have building a structure. We like structure. I mean, it started off with the first people, they volcano blew up, so they threw a virgin in and it stopped. So they say, aha. Religion started. Now, Jesus, I've been doing a lot of studying on the Bible and where it came from. And it's stories. It was metaphors. It was stories. And now people take it literally. It was never meant to be taken literally. It's got some history in it. That's fine. Kind of one-sided history, but all this stuff, we got to figure it out, and we won't. We won't figure it all out. But it's best, I think, to just leave it without edges. Just kind of let it unfold. You'll learn what you need to learn. You don't have to know it all, because you're going to know it all later anyway. It's like studying for a test you're not going to take. Why waste the time on some of that stuff?
Yeah.
So I was looking at your website, and you have you put together an interesting list on it, and then basically it's recommendations for people in particular jobs. And one of them was to doctors and nurses. I'm going to read this out loud. It says, if you make a mistake or error while attending a patient, please apologize to that person and inform their caregiver of the event. Secret transgressions leave patients feeling unimportant, frustrated, and vulnerable. Where did that come from?
Well, I was in the ICU for quite some time. And after I came out of the coma, I weighed 86 pounds. So I couldn't move. I had the thing in the throat. I couldn't talk. And all I could do was blink, right? That's hard to communicate. So one time, one of these nurses came in. I had tubes and a tube down my throat to feed me. I had IVs. I had all kinds of crap all over me. And she was a rather large woman. And she came in and she was bustling around and checking things and pulling wires. And she when she walked into this mess that was my, how they kept me alive, her button hooked onto my feeding tube. And she was moving. And as she did, it was pulling the feeding tube up from my throat, through my nose. And I couldn't say anything. So I just went, and she turned around really quick. Zip, this thing came out my nose. Boy, did that sting. And then she picked it up like this, and she wiped it off on her sweater and came at me like she was going to put it back down. They have to have you out to put that thing in. And I just went, no, she said, well, then you better learn how to eat, and walked out. Now, she knew I couldn't talk. I had a brain of mush at that point from all the drugs. I couldn't remember her name. But to this day, I remember that unkindness, and that's something that she's going to look at in her life review and go, ooh, that was pretty gnarly of me, wasn't it? So I'm just saying that just because nobody sees you do it, it's got long lasting problems there. Another one was, they were trying to, again, they put one of those buckets underneath me to try and get me to pee in the bucket instead of laying there on this pad and just peeing on the pad. And the lady put me on that thing, which was right in my back of my spine and on my buttocks. And I 86 pounds, I had no flesh. I had flesh. I was just skin and bones. She put these heavy blankets back on me and then went out in the hall and forgot me. And I was trying to, I could see the nurses walking by, pain like you can't believe in my back. I had back surgery years later. I was crying and there was nobody to help me. I was trying to mentally, do the telepathic thing with the nurses. I could see them at the desk and I couldn't make any noise. She came in like a half an hour later and she saw me crying and she said, oh, what's wrong with you? And she went, oh my God. And she went over, took the blankets off, pulled that out. She's feeling my back. She says, well, I don't think it broke the skin. Oh, yuck. No, I'm sorry. No, nothing. She just left me there. Number 2. That's why it's on my website.
Okay. So these all came from experiences that you had at one time. The next one you put down was for assisted living personnel. Were you in assisted living, or these stories that you've heard from? You say there is a tendency to dismiss elderly or disabled persons as undeserving of patience and respect. It is sometimes helpful to have a photo of your clients in their prime years on a prominent bulletin board to remind others of their younger versions. We always remain our essential selves during our lifetime, but we just appear to others in a disguise when we age, become debilitated, and are or ill.
Yeah, I've had a couple of little old ladies I've kind of looked out for before. My parents were not in assisted living, but in they're in an, what's that called, independent living. But that's one of the things they do on the boards there. When the new people come, they put a picture of them now and a picture of them when, what they used to be. One particular lady was going into dementia, and I had known her just as somebody that always helped out at church, very quiet. There was this picture of her. She was an airline, she was in the Air Force in World War II. She was one of those ladies that, if they landed a plane in some place, she got in the plane and took it to where it was supposed to be. And, people are just, not treating with respect. So many of us, we're all going to be old too someday. And I'm going to put a picture of myself. I've got some pretty good pictures. And I just say, hey, I'm still me. I think people forget that.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then you have also EMT and firefighters. Were you involved with EMTs and firefighters as well?
Yeah, not firewire. I've had a couple of experiences where I've had to, you call 911, they throw you in the truck and try and put an IV in going 50 miles an hour over a bumpy road, that sort of thing. Just people just need to think, just be aware. We're all souls, all the same kind of soul. We're all brothers and sisters.
Well, they've been conditioned to be numb, right? And that's
Yeah.
part of the issue is they need to get back to being in touch with soul, being in touch with present moment. And that's when I hear you talk, that's what it seems to happen is you become more in touch with the truth of who you are in the moment, and to live more from that place. I think is a great message.
So, very, very much. You finish this. I recommend everybody go to your website and look at this list. But you finish it with we all need to take a step back, and then now and then, and reconsider our existence, purpose, and eventual destination. Because as we age and the number of days left to us grows shorter, this becomes more pressing. However, none of us know when our last minute on earth will come. It is wise to prepare now for our next destination while we still can. Those are some profound words, and definitely from somebody who's saying them with experience.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm hoping to get the message out. That's the whole thing. God is love.
So when you have these when you talk to these people, like you say, the synchronicity brings them into your life, like on the airplane and stuff like that. What are you telling them? What exactly are you saying? Are you saying that this is where your loved one is, or how are you setting their heart at ease?
I think my best example was when I got back, I got into hospice. A lot of people who come back do. I just wanted to be around people that were going to die. I was so jealous. I just wanted to be with them. I thought they were so fortunate and so lucky. I just wanted to be there. So most of the time they just stuck me on the front desk, and I'd show people to where their loved one was. And one time the nurses were having trouble with one of the patients not far from my desk, and he kept getting out of bed. And they finally had to take the bed apart. He was an older man, and put his mattress on the floor because he kept, hurting himself getting out of bed, and they didn't know why. And so I was sitting at the desk. It was kind of quiet. And one of the nurses came in and said, "Okay, you need to go into 1A. Mr. Smith keeps trying to get out of bed, and we don't have somebody to keep an eye on him. So don't let him out of bed." And I said, "What? 115 pounds. Who is this guy?" So anyway, I go in there. This poor little guy, I think I outweighed him. He was a darling little black gentleman. I've not had a whole lot of experience with people of color in my life, and not because I chose that. It's just where I was raised and all that. So I didn't know how he felt about me. I mean, all this is going through your head. You're just, I was out of my depth here. So I just kind of stared at him, and I said, he was looking at me kind of, little guy, all wizened up. And I says, "Now don't be doing anything dumb like jumping out of bed." I says, "I don't want to have to tackle you." And the boy's eyes come up like, "What the hell? Where'd they find her?" and I'm kind of looking at him, and I thought, what is he getting out of bed for? He couldn't talk. And I thought, I have been there. What I had. I couldn't talk, and people didn't understand. So I thought, I have to figure this out. So I'm looking around, and I see that he's got a glass next to his bed. The pitcher is empty. The glass is empty, and a straw. And I says, "Oh," I says, "Are you thirsty?" And he goes, and he takes his eyes and he goes down to the glass. And I went, "Oh my gosh, that's why you're getting out of bed." And he goes, So I go running down the hall, and I says, "Can Mr. Smith have any water?" "That's what's wrong." They said, "Let me look at the chart." "Yeah, you got." So I go running, and I said, "Don't get out of bed. I'll be right back." So I get the glass, and I fill it up, and I thought, well, he's laying down. How am I going to get him to drink? And oh shit. So excuse my French. So I jumped, I slid into bed. I took his head, put it in my lap. His head's against my breast, and I, like a baby, and I took the glass, and I put a lot of water in there, and I put it so he could get drink the straw, and he drained it. And then, he had this. So I got it. I said, "I'm sorry, terribly sorry." So I put him back down in the bed, and he was just so grateful. And I thought, now see, that's that kind of thing you got to watch for. So I was, watching him, and I thought, well, I didn't know what to say. I didn't know him. And I said, I'm jealous of you. You are so lucky. Oh, his eyes got like, are you out of your mind? And I said, no, I've been where you're going. I have been there. I have been to heaven. I said, it is so wonderful. There's no pain. It's just total joy. And you get to see all your loved ones, and you can fly, and you can do all this stuff. I says, they had to kick me out, Mr. Smith. I did not want to leave, and I am just so jealous. So he got a look on him, and he kind of settled in, and he put his hands like this on his chest and kind of took a big sigh. And I came up and I said, are you all right? And he spoke as he had gotten a drink of water. He says, quiet, I'm getting ready. And I said, okay. So he was just fine. And the nurse came in and says, okay, Kathy, you can go back to your post now. And I said, well, it's time for me to leave. And he goes, don't leave. And I said, oh, honey, I wish I could stay, but, I got to get across the bridge, and my husband's waiting for dinner. I says, you're going to be just fine. I'll see you on the other side. And then I left. So is that kind of stuff. That's probably the best example.
That's fantastic.
Another one was this guy was dying, and mother was dying. And the little girl, she's probably about 35, was crying. She said, I'll never see my mother again. I said, oh, yes, she will. I says, I've been there, and she's going to be just fine and waiting for her. She ran up to her husband and says, this lady has been to heaven. Mom's going to be fine. So it's a blessing. It was all worth it.
Wow.
And that's what people are looking for more than anything else, is that their loved ones are going to be fine, and things are going to continue for their loved ones. They're not so much feeling about themselves as they are the one who has already passed. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah. And will you see them again? There's a horrible fear that's the last time you'll ever see them. It's
Right.
awful.
So we're going to wrap things up, but Jude made a comment here. It says, I just had an NDE last night. It was a place that was not heaven or hell as described by so many. There were people and animals and plants. At the end, before I became conscious, I saw a man in a machine and heard the term time machine repeated 4 times. This was so different from an NDE from 22 years ago, when I was standing at my window and everything was golden except the geraniums on my neighbor's deck, which were, as you see them here. Thank you for sharing your story, and thank you for the infinite wisdom. Interesting. Very, very interesting.
Yeah, it is. Very interesting.
Wow.
Can I leave one sentence? I was asking God, I need something to say, a mantra. And he told me to be loving, kind, merciful, forgiving, encouraging, grateful, non-judgmental, and useful. So that I'd like to share too.
Nice.
Fantastic. What a great way to end the show.
Yeah.
Well, you just answered my last question. I was going to say, is there any last words to wisdom?
I heard you say that in my head.
Gary, do you have any last questions? Gary, do you have
No,
any
that was
last
awesome. It was
wisdom?
great. It was a great perspective from your side, and thanks for coming on and sharing with us.
Oh,
And the
thank
audience
you.
really enjoyed it as well too. We did drop the link in the chat for those of you, if they need to go and look for it. Drop the link to her website. You can find out more about different things, where she's going, what she's doing, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, thanks again for coming on to our show.
Thank you, Gary and
Absolutely
Ross.
fascinating. We are so happy that we could make this work with you. And anything else? I think we're about done for the day. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for this portion of the Infinite Wisdom interview series. We have another interview coming up next week. And so we hope everybody tunes in. And Kathy, again, thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Now go get the book, everyone. Go get the book, read it. It's really awesome. Bye, everyone.